We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor, Scott D. Cosenza. Just now, we've been talking about illegal migrants turning up in Martha's Vineyard. But now I wanted to turn our attention to what legal ramifications there are for Governor Ron DeSantis. Scott, Ron DeSantis, his office has responded by producing waivers that the immigrants signed. Now, surely that scuppers the lawsuit, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't, and it shouldn't, meaning without further investigation.
Right.
Presumably, people who are non-English speakers who arrived at the United States in conditions far less than ideal. We don't know what their sort of health and mental conditions were. Like, you have to give any waiver that's given in the law, whether it's respect to civil law or otherwise, must be sort of done reasonably under reasonable conditions.
Must be entered into under reasonable conditions without duress or outside factors, right?
Yeah, we don't allow people to present their future spouses a prenuptial agreement at the altar and then say that it was a legal waiver of rights. Well, that's a tip. You know, present your premarital contractual agreements, you know, several days, if not weeks or months before the event. And the idea is that if you're under duress, extreme pressure, if it's a hot meal that's available to you by the DeSantis people, if you sign this form and you haven't had a hot meal in a month, then maybe you just sign the form and that's not a knowing waiver. You know, did you get a chance to read it? Was it published in a language that you understand? All these things are relevant.
Okay, good. So what are Ron DeSantis' criminal liabilities here? And are they serious criminal liabilities or are they more political attacks in your considered opinion as legal affairs editor?
Well, I think they're both. So let me tease that out to you.
Sure.
What I mean by I think they're both is I think that if people who have the capability of rendering criminal charges are politically motivated and they're willing to use their position in advancement of politics, then there is something there, because that just means that if you're willing to twist and bend the law to, you know, to try to get X person, well, there's a lot of rope to work with. We have many laws that are often, contradictory and confounding. But if you put somebody to task and say, you know, this is a person, can we find something on them that they've done? Then perhaps yes.
As Stalin once said, "Show me that." Was it Stalin who said, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime"?
Or Beria, his, that's probably who said it. That was who did the arresting for Stalin until he himself, I think, got as one does get purged eventually.
He who lives by the sword.
Yes, but in a strictly criminal sense of like, did Ron DeSantis kidnap any of these people or induce a kidnapping? I would say the answer is absolutely no. And unlikely to yield traditional criminal charges. Now, we mentioned earlier a sheriff in Texas, Mark, I think it's Bexar County, Javier Salazar, has instituted a criminal investigation against DeSantis and others as a result of these horrible crimes that have been. Well, no, I'm sorry. I think that's not the answer. It's just that it's a politics thing. The question that you asked when we first started talking about this, why are they doing this? And of course, it's just hypocrisy. It's, people will go to the ends of the earth to prosecute. Some people who have political powers and law enforcement powers will go to the ends of the earth to sort of combine those both to punish their enemies versus, you can imagine how many crimes are taking place in that county at this moment. It's a triage unit. What crimes do you pay attention to? First of all, I don't even think this is a crime. Second of all, if it is, hotel rooms, room service, McDonald's coupons, flights to Massachusetts, is that really where you're going to focus your crime? And then you have the Twitterverse and some of the more looniers of the left discussing human trafficking as if somehow this has morphed into I don't know.
which kind of brings us back to where we started. According to, as you say, you said it was on the Twitterverse, but I'm seeing this from allegedly serious people in politics and the media who are using the words human trafficking, allegedly serious people.
The blood-brain barrier between the Twitterverse and allegedly serious people, Mark, grows thinner, sadly,
thinner
by the hour.
And so they're saying human trafficking. But again, it comes back to it's okay when we do it.
Yeah. That again, it's just a looking outward and using and drawing inferences from the known facts to be used in the worst possible way towards one party, and then drawing the law as widely as constructed as can be to ensnare their activities as well. And on the other side, it's a narrowing of both. So it's no surprise that you come up with vast swaths of criminal or even civil liability on one side and sort of none on the other.
Now, this is clearly a story that is not going away and will last as long as there are people fighting for truth, justice, the American way, or at least until the midterms turn up. Scott DeSantis.
Mark, the taxpayers' money, that's what they're all fighting for, just to be...
Absolutely.
It's about those dollars.
Truth, justice, and the taxpayer dime. Scott DeSantis, thank you ever so much.
Thanks, Mark.
And that's almost all we have time for on this week's edition of Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. I want to thank our guests, Joe Schaefer, Andrew Moran, and Scott DeSantis, and of course you, the listeners, for taking the time to tune in. My final thought for this week relates to how those in power assure us that the policies and programs they promise will be transformative. And we've heard these vows for decades, and yet the world continues in its battle of chaos and order regardless. I'm reminded of the boast of Ozymandias, King of Kings, in the Shelley poem. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair, his pedestal reads. And the poem ends, nothing besides remains round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare. The lone and level sands stretch far away. Well, that's a transformation indeed. Thanks for listening. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.